So, John Lomu, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me today, paying tribute to your brother Jonah, and of course, telling me a little bit about your own background and your family life also. How are you today, my friend?
I am very good, thanks, Eugene. Yourself?
Good. I'm very good. Do you like what I'm wearing here? Special tribute.
Yeah, I do. I do.
my,
I mean, I
my
also.
my Irish friends mightn't be so pleased with it, but that's okay. They'll forgive me, I'm sure.
uh, we'll give you the pass.
Will you give me the pass? Thank you. The official Lomu. I got a pass from a Lomu. Wow. Okay. Okay, John. So let's talk about your brother. I mean, he's one of those iconic names in sport. For example, I mean, I told you this the first time we spoke, which was, can you believe it, 6 years ago? I
Wow.
told you this. Yeah. I told you this, that
Mm.
I'm not the biggest rugby fanatic. It's not that I don't like it. I love it and I have great respect for the players, but it's just one of those sports from a young age. I was a football fan. So I
Yeah.
followed football. All of my uncles were football fans. That's what I got into. Confession, actually, I probably watched a full All Blacks game before I ever watched an Ireland game. Jeez, I better edit that out. But anyway, your brother, Jonah, he's
Yeah.
one of those iconic names, John, that what I'm getting at is if I spoke to somebody who never watched boxing in their life, they
Yeah.
know who Muhammad Ali is. They know who Mike Tyson is. If I found someone that never watched basketball, they know who Michael Jordan is.
Yeah.
Jonah Lomu is one of those iconic names that everyone recognizes.
Yeah.
Why was he so different, John? Why did he stand out?
I mean, really, I think it's just the fact that the abilities that he had at the time. I mean, it was from a young age anyway, Eugene. I think he just had that ability to do things on the sports field. I mean, whether it was whether it was athletics or even rugby.
Mm.
Rugby wasn't really our first love. Really, we were proud league players.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up as youngsters, we played league up until went to high school.
He was 14 years of age when he first started to play rugby. Is that right?
Yes,
That's
he's the.
phenomenal. 4 years later, what happened, in that space of time? So tell me about his, and what about you? Were you playing at that time, playing
Yeah.
rugby?
The
Hmm.
thing was, both of my parents couldn't afford both of us to go to Wesley College, so he started off at Wesley himself.
Hmm.
I didn't come along till a bit later on in the year, or a couple of years later when he got a scholarship.
Hmm.
But we can talk about that a bit later as well. That goes on to how things sort of pan out.
Escalated. Yeah.
And he was always a big boy for his age, and
Mm.
that was the thing. A lot of people thought he was older than what he was, but the first 15 at Wesley College were always your seniors.
Hmm.
He was the first, how would you say, junior?
Yes, he was the youngest, wasn't he, to play for them?
Yeah, he was the youngest there, and then he was also the youngest at All Blacks. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Unbelievable. And actually, John, I heard as well, there was a huge kind of honor attached with the junior players or the junior students in the school it was like an honor for them to clean the boots of the first 15. But I heard Jonah never allowed anybody touch his boots. Is that right? Throughout his
yeah,
whole career.
yeah. I mean, as a junior, it was well. It was an honor to try and because a lot of those guys that went on and became All Blacks, and that you sort of emulated things that those guys did.
Mm-hmm.
But because he came up and he was a junior himself, and most of the juniors were his friends at the time. At that time, he just didn't want it. So
Okay. Yeah, you're uncomfortable with that. Yeah.
uncomfortable that when you got your mates and that around you, and you sort of,
Mm.
yeah, nah.
He was probably afraid they would play a prank on him with them or something.
Probably, yeah.
Probably. So later in his career, he said that he continued to do that. He wouldn't let anyone touch his boots. I wonder how
Mm.
much of that is maybe superstition or just a sign of how humble of a man he was.
I think it was just, I mean, it started off because he was a junior, and it didn't, obviously when it's your mates, and he was always loyal to his friends.
So what happened with, he's in the grounds of the college because it's boarding school. So he was staying there.
Yeah.
He's supposed to be only playing for them, but wasn't he secretly playing for a second team and sneaking out with his mates and playing?
Like I said, he was always loyal to his friends and his cousins.
Yeah.
Now, my cousins and I, because Wesley College is a boarding school now, it's right out in what we call Wop Wops, which is out in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And yet it was like from Auckland to Wesley, probably about an hour drive.
Mm-hmm.
So what would happen is my cousin, the coach of the team at the time, would drive out to Wesley College, and he'd be waiting on the side of the road, pick him up, come back into out to Auckland. And when he came out of Wesley College, and we were picking up from Wesley College, we were going to Mount Wellington Rugby Union, and he was playing there. One of the boys went to tackle him, and he was concussed trying to tackle him at the time. There was a couple of guys who were out there watching. One was a coach from St. Kennigan's College, was an Auckland College out here. It's the college that a few other ex-All Blacks like Joe Rokethoko went to their school. There's a few others I can't really remember, but there's a lot of rugby schools around Auckland, and so they tried to poach him. So he was offered a scholarship from St. Ken's. Shown to this was taken and shown to my parents. My parents went to Wesley College. Went, hey, the school's offering to do this. Mm-hmm. What are you gonna? So, hence how he got a scholarship to play to go to Wesley College. So,
I mean, when he left college, he was 117 kilos, I read. Like, solid muscle. He was a fully grown man. Mike Tyson springs to mind when he was 14. But how did he speak, speaking as his brother, how did he speak about rugby at that time? Was it clear that he wanted a career and a life in rugby? He wanted this as his life?
Basically, yeah. Before he left school, it was already clear because before he was even... he was in the first 15 at a young age, but even prior to that, once he made the first 15, he was also being selected for New Zealand teams, the junior teams. And then there was also counties, which was our local province in the area. He was making a county squads. So he was actually he was playing more rugby than he was rugby league. So it was just the way it happened.
Sure. He did go on. He played, as you said, he started representing New Zealand at different levels. He played the sevens and everything. He got called up as the youngest All Black in history. That record still stands, does it?
Yes, it does.
Yes, incredible. What an honor. Like only 4 or 5 years on from when he first played a game of rugby. Tell us a little bit about when he got that call, when he got called up in your house. What was the excitement? I can imagine. What was that news like?
Well, at that time, it was never announced or any sort of thing. It was actually told to the players, and it wasn't until he, because they had, it was a bit different during his era as well, because they had games like the probables versus the possibles, which was like a trial game for the All Blacks. Mm-hmm. So they had 2 teams. And out of the 2 teams, they'd select the players that they wanted for the tours. And he played in it. Mum went down, and Mum was pretty much there. Once we found out, it was pretty much a big party. But, yeah, it was just for us. It was a great honor that he was able to make the ABs. So, yeah.
Of course, the ABs, the All Blacks, of course. I was wondering there for a moment. So no, it was incredible. And I mean, his first 2 games were against, for the first team, were against France. Isn't that right? 2 defeats. And he has said that, I made a few mistakes in those games, but he obviously did enough to impress. And after only 2 games, he was called into the World Cup squad. Was he expecting that?
No, not really. I mean, getting caught up, he was trying... being called into the All Blacks was one of the things he wasn't actually expecting, because one, they had him in a position that he was never playing right through his schooling years.
Yes.
They playing on the wing when he was basically, even through New Zealand schoolboys, he was playing number 8. If he wasn't playing number 8, he was a lock. If he wasn't playing lock, it's basically back in the forwards again. So it's
So, John, who was it that said, okay, I think you'd be good on the wing? Who was it that spotted that? Because he broke the mold. He was completely different. He had explosive power and he had that incredible speed as well.
It was actually Laurie Mains who wanted to trial him out on the wing. So they got from Counties Manukau, provincial team at the time, and Ross Cooper was a coach and wanted to trial him up out on the wing. So they pretty much pushed for him to have a go out on the wing and see how it was going.
It went well.
Yeah, he went well again. And we also had to put going into the county's 7 squad. He was always in the forwards, but once he made the New Zealand 7 squad, he had the likes of Eric Rush and Glenn Osborne and a few of the other boys that would mentor him on the areas that he needed most. And a good thing about it, well, I don't know whether Rushy would tell you it was a good or bad thing, because it was the position that Eric played. So being out on the wing, so mentoring Jonah into the wing areas for the All Blacks was another thing Rush did for him. So yeah, he had a lot of support. Coming from a number of the All Black players.
That's great. They obviously seen the potential there. And John, he was sent to the sevens in Hong Kong before the World Cup. Is that a normal thing to do? Because you'd imagine they want to mind the players in case they get injured before the World Cup. Did he think when he was selected for the sevens that, maybe there's a chance I'm not going to the World Cup?
I don't really know whether he thought that there was going to be a chance with him. I think he just more enjoyed. Eric and them gave him that sort of. I think that was one of the things as well, was a 7 squad that they had at the time, sort of encompassed him and sort of brought him in and sort of kept his mind focused on the game rather than worrying about what he failed at. And, because at the time he was still quite young getting into the ABs, and his thought process wasn't, I wouldn't say developed, it just... it could get you down and you could lose your focus, and you could lose, there was a number of times he could have chosen to go the opposite way and go back to league at that time. But I think because of the guys that he had around him, it sort of kept his focus on it. Like I said, he was loyal to his friends and loyal to his cousins and his family. So... I think that loyalty played a big part in it, in him still staying with the All Blacks.
Yeah, definitely. And, you're already answering questions here, because I've had friends that have asked me, ask John this, ask him that. So I just want to give a little mention to a good friend of mine in Galway in Ireland, huge rugby fan and a huge Jonah Lomu fan, Derek Hallinan. So he wanted me to explore a little bit more about Jonah as a person. So you're doing that. So thank you so much for that. And he'll appreciate your answers as well. Trivia for you. Jonah's first ever World Cup try was against?
Ireland.
It sure was. Yeah, he burst onto the scene. Yeah. And he still has the record, hasn't he, for the most World Cup tries?
It's equaled with Brian Habana.
Oh. Yes, that's right. It's level, 2 of them. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so let's talk about the day. This is the day that, obviously I remember him against Ireland, but the day he ran over a cat. Do you know what I'm talking about? Mike Cat. The game against England. Oh my God. I was a young kid at the time, but I'm just thinking of Jonah running in a straight line and people just bouncing off of him. That's the memory I have. He scored the first try within 2 minutes. Is that right?
Yeah.
And he just bundled through everybody. Okay. As his brother, what are you thinking at that moment? Are you thinking, okay, we've a real chance of winning the World Cup here? Or what are you thinking?
At the time, it was just like anything. We just wanted to watch them win the game. And that was, we didn't think... A lot of our guys here don't think well past the game that's in front of you.
Yeah.
If you've come from a rugby background, it's that first game that you have. That's what you focus on, and that's what you deal with.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
Yeah.
think we thought, beyond that. It was pretty
Mm-hmm.
much beat England, and then we'll go from there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was still in school at the time, and me and the guys were just sitting there watching the game, and then.
Oh, so you watched it in school, yeah?
Yeah, I was still at school because we just pretty much have our TV room that we had, and it's like a little grandstand that goes up. It just erupted after we scored how many tries. Every try thing, it was like, oh man, I was getting ragdolled.
You were in your own scrum.
Yeah.
Fantastic memories, I'm sure. Did you get to many of his games?
Here in New Zealand, yes and no, because after '95, I ended up in Wales.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I was playing in Wales for a number of years. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Did you ever were you ever coached by or anything Warren Gatland? Have you ever come across Warren Gatland?
No, I came back well before he stepped over to Wales.
Okay, and just the only reason I threw his name in there is because he used to be my uncle's next door neighbor, and he painted his house as well. So there you go. Shout out for Billy Devlin there. Okay, so John, let me ask you about into the final against South Africa.
Yeah.
Monumental occasion, of course, because what was going on in South Africa with Nelson Mandela and everything. Jonah talked about when Nelson came out, the ultimate mind game, wearing the Springbok jersey and the baseball cap as well. But one thing I really admire about Jonah, in such disappointment, and you would completely forgive him for being almost bitter about losing it. But he said he took huge comfort in it eased the pain of defeat when he seen what it did for the country of South Africa. Again, I think that speaks volumes of Jonah as a man as well.
It was kind of hard because my parents and I went across for the final, and I didn't really take any grasp of it because even when he was here, it wasn't that. Yeah, we watched him, but mainly it was his family that was sort of supporting him, that knew what he could do and that. But it wasn't until myself and my parents went across and for the final, and then we decided to go into one of the malls in South Africa, and they pretty much soon pushed us out of the area and into a car, get us out of there as quick as we can, because they sort of recognized us as being his family. And to meet Nelson Mandela, that was it's something you just you don't see often, and a great man is now passed. What he has done for South Africa, I don't think anybody can do, and no one can repeat it. That's for sure. But it's helped them out a lot, and you're part of history when you do things like that.
It's immortalized in movies and everything, isn't it?
Pretty much.
Yeah, it is. Actually, so let's talk about the aftermath of that World Cup, John. As his family, you're talking about the fans were recognizing you guys and everything. Did your life change dramatically? Obviously, Jonah's life changed dramatically. In terms of privacy, was there any negative side to that?
I don't. I mean, for him, yes. For our family, really not, because here in New Zealand, they're still quite private. It doesn't matter whether you're a famous superstar or something, someone recognizes you, yeah, okay. But it's not like you get mobbed or anything like that.
Is that down to the New Zealand people? They're quite, am I right in thinking, relaxed, like chilled out a little bit?
Yeah, they are. They're quite chilled out and
respectful as well.
Yeah. It's the odd media here and there that give you the odd problems, but other than that, no.
Good. So in terms of the media, John, and I know in the UK that's a big problem. I hate to see it with footballers. They love to build up their own players and then just to knock them again. So are the media quite positive towards the All Blacks in general? in your
Yeah,
country?
I
Good.
mean, I remember going over to the UK, and the thing is, it's just like the English. They built him up, so that's how, and I guess that's one thing we um, give them give to the English is that they built him up. They gave him credit for knocking over their team, and that's pretty much how I can see it.
Yeah, that's true. Definitely. And they love talking about it as well. So talking about, quick question here from another friend of mine, Chris Capaldi in Edinburgh in Scotland. He wanted to know, how serious were the offers from the NFL after that World Cup?
They were very serious.
Really?
Very serious. Dallas Cowboys.
Yes. Wow.
I remember he was given a trip to the US for what team it was? Broncos. I think it was.
Yes, the Broncos. Yeah, I think so.
And yeah, just to see what the output was like. To be honest with you, I wouldn't have seen him go.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not one of those things. How would you put it? One, they wear pads.
Yeah.
Just something you can't. We grew up in the era where you don't wear headgear. You didn't wear mouth guards. And it was hard enough to wear a mouth guard and wear headgear. And yeah, playing rugby and then if you were to add all those pads on, I don't know how it would have went,
Yeah. I couldn't picture him either. I have to say, I couldn't picture him doing it. Okay, so thank you. Chris will be happy you answered that as well. Chris himself played sevens for Scotland, actually. He played at a very high standard. Okay, so moving on to later, after that World Cup, I think it was 2 years later, it was revealed that he was actually keeping a very big secret. Obviously they were saying only not the coach, but the team doctor knew about it, and he pleaded with the team doctor not to tell the coach or his teammates. But John, obviously his family knew about this. Did they, going into the World Cup? They must have.
To be honest with you, Mum and them didn't know until a bit later.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
I don't think Joe wanted her to worry too much, so sort of kept it until he had to actually tell her. Then that's when she found out.
Okay. Did you know?
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, it was one of those things where shut your mouth while I'll give you a hug. Sure, no worries. I always knew he knew his limits. When it came to the point where he needed to fix it first before he went back, that's when he took that time off in 97. So, I mean, for him to extend that time or play longer, he needed to do what he needed to do to get back on that field. Yeah,
and he did get back on that field. He went on again the World Cup in 1999. That's funny enough. I don't know if people consider that his peak years, but that's actually my favorite era of him. Maybe because I appreciated him more, and I remember him from the last World Cup, so I kind of followed his build up to this World Cup, and I couldn't wait to watch him, whereas he took me by surprise in the last World Cup. But his games, he took everyone by surprise. His games against England and France, incredible performances. I loved the try. I think he beat 8 or 9 players. He just muscled his way through all of them. Really stands in my memory. Love that try. What a game. Disappointing, of course, you couldn't get the win. But I think France were incredible that day as well. They deserved it. Yeah. He said that after that World Cup, that dressing room was the worst dressing room he was ever in, for morale and just the feeling gutted, absolutely gutted. So what was the main differences when he came home between losing in the final in 95 and then getting knocked out in 1999?
Coming home after that, I think it was more, it was focused more on seeing what he was going to do next. I guess he wanted a challenge. It was 99. I can't remember what year he left the Blues and went across to the Chiefs, then to Wellington. So I think he needed to get a change and also a new I don't know, new challenge, really.
Mhm.
He was never one to sit back and just sort of wonder what was next.
You know what I love about him, John? I love because he seems so humble, and he always said, I never considered myself the greatest. He said, I just wanted to be the greatest in my position, and I believed I was. I consider him the greatest because to me, the greatest it's a package. It's not just the greatest ability, the greatest, but everything, the whole package, the attitude, the what he stands for, the example he sets for the younger generation, things like this. So as a package, I just think nobody inspired people the way your brother did. So for me, he's the greatest for sure. By May 2003, he was on dialysis, isn't that right? And he was going in like every second day for 6 hours at a time. That must have been such a difficult time.
It was just sort of trying to work out your times and trying to do it so that way you're around during the day, because it does take, it takes time to do it. So at one stage he had dialysis machine at home where you can just do it at home. And it was hard to see him go through it because you sort of saw it go down. It sort of broke him to an extent. And that was probably about the first time I've ever seen him pretty much down. It sort of broke him in a way. Not that he let anyone see it, but as a brother, you could tell,
Yeah, of course. Had to be tough. It was a friend of his that donated his kidney. Is that right? He got a match. And it lasted for about 7 years. Is that right?
Yes. It was Grant Kiriyama. He's actually a local radio host. Great man, Grant. And my brother had a lot of time for him.
What a gesture to do this,
Yeah. And I guess that's one of the things he wanted to give back to the people that helped him out. He did bodybuilding after that as well, because Grant was a bodybuilder. Like I said, he liked to challenge himself, and that was another challenge that he wanted to meet.
Yeah, incredible. He looked great doing it, I have to say. And it goes back to your point at the start of the interview where you said he was kind of a natural. He could be successful at any sport he turned his hand to.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot to be said for that. I can't put into words, really, the impact he had on rugby. From what I've seen, he transformed rugby. He transcended rugby. And we all have, as fans, our favorite Jonah Lomu memory. As his brother, what's your favorite memory on and off the field of Jonah?
It was probably not one that I think it was just...
and we welcome a funny story if you have one.
Yeah. It was basically playing with families, where our family members that played rugby as well. Like when he came out of school, they played Mount Wellington one year, and because I had my uncles and my aunties behind me, and we were watching this game, and he stepped out. I was the touch judge, and he stepped out on the line. I put the flag up. My uncles and aunties turned around to me and said, "Hey, you put that flag down. Are you going to get a hiding after I finish with this game?"
Oh, fantastic.
That's one I always remember, and that's the only time I'll...
fantastic.
The grammar, and
I just want to say that, I was a little, I won't say nervous, but, you have to be sensitive about these things because the loss of a brother, it's easy for me to be all excited asking you about your brother that, inspired me and inspired millions across the world. But we can't lose sight of the fact that although you'll always be proud to talk about him, I'm sure, it's also not an easy thing. So I appreciate you doing that. And I hope you enjoyed today as much as I did, John. People in Ireland are really going to enjoy hearing stories we never heard before and knowing a little bit more about Jonah as a man, as opposed to the beast on the pitch. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.